Welcome back to LAWSTACHE channel. My name is Anton Vialtsin. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the Southern District of California here in San Diego. In this video, we're going to discuss federal firearms trafficking laws. Interestingly enough, firearms trafficking is not defined under federal law. Instead, the term generally means a transfer or diversion of firearms out of the legal market for criminal purpose, and violators are then prosecuted for the underlying crimes, such as making a false statement under the acquisition of a firearm, or transfer of firearm to a prohibited person, or engaging in business of dealing or manufacture of firearms without a license. So in this video, we're going to look closer at all of these underlying offenses so you have a better understanding of firearms trafficking under federal law. First, let's discuss the history and laws dealing with the federal firearms trafficking. In 1968, Congress passed the Gun Control Act, which required individuals who engaged in business of manufacturing or dealing of firearms to be licensed with the ATF. The manufacturers also had to put serial numbers on all firearms, and all licensees had to keep a good record of all firearm transfers. Now, the act also prohibited certain individuals from possessing firearms. These individuals are found under the statute 18 U.S.C. 922G. And these are the group of people who are felons, fugitives, people who engaged in illegal drug trafficking, and certain domestic violence abusers. Now, the act also prohibited a person from transferring a firearm to someone who they believe is a person who's prohibited from possessing firearms. This is found in 18 U.S.C. 922D. Now, in 1993, the Congress also passed the Brady Act, which required all licensees to run a background check on any potential buyers of the firearms. So these are all of your federal laws in a nutshell dealing with firearms. Congress expressly passed the Gun Control Act to fight against crime and violence, and it was designed not to put an undue burden on law-abiding citizens, meaning that while licensees are required to put serial numbers on the firearms and record transfers of firearms, an unlicensed person doesn't have to do any of that. The only thing that a citizen has to do is make sure that he doesn't transfer the firearm to a prohibited person. That still applies to normal citizens. And you cannot transfer firearms to somebody who you believe is a resident of a different state other than your own, which is found in 18 U.S.C. 922A5. With similar fashion, a citizen can also make firearms without putting serial numbers on it, without registering these firearms, or telling anyone about their existence. The only caveat to all of these laws is that a citizen has to be licensed if his activity rises to the level of engaging in a business of manufacturing or dealing in firearms. The only thing I have to say here is that there is no definite number of firearms that the law requires or says that once you sell or manufacture this amount of firearms, you have to be licensed. There's no law like that, which means that this is going to be a fact-specific finding if you're being prosecuted for engaging without a license in sales of firearms. If the prosecutor goes after you for violation of these laws, then he has to prove that you willfully engaged in the business of trafficking firearms. So how do prohibited persons obtain firearms? Well, the federal law makes it a crime to steal firearms, which is found in 18 U.S.C. 924M. And despite this law, in the last 5 years, the ATF recorded 34,000 thefts of firearms. Then a prohibited person can also use a straw purchaser, meaning recruit somebody with no criminal history to purchase the firearm for them. But instead of creating that paper trail, a lot of prohibited people simply purchase the firearms on a private market from sellers on social media, newspapers, flea markets, and so on. And as I have discussed in the previous section, the private seller doesn't have to record the transfer, doesn't even have to know the identity of the purchaser. All he has to do is make sure that that individual is not prohibited. But nothing requires you to go above and beyond in trying to figure out if somebody's prohibited. After all, you're not required to run background checks if you're a private citizen. And then in recent years, we're also seeing an increase of manufacturing of firearms in private sector. And because of our technology, some of these firearms are even being 3D printed. After all, the federal law doesn't prohibit the way the firearm is manufactured. So individuals can in fact use 3D printers, and that's perfectly legal. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned a little bit more about trafficking of firearms, leave the comments below, click like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so next time I post, you'll be first to know. Thanks for watching.